Right. Let's get into something that not a lot of fans are fully clocking yet, because on the surface it doesn't always look dramatic. But when you really break it down, the situation around Celtic and European football could be heading into a pretty rough spell over the next few years. And I'm not saying that just to be negative or to stir anything up. This is genuinely about understanding where things stand and why the road ahead might be a bit tougher than people expect. If you look back at how this season played out in Europe, it wasn't a complete disaster, but it definitely fell short of what many supporters would have hoped for. There were moments where Celtic showed flashes of quality, especially in the Europa League, but ultimately the campaign was shaped by that early setback that changed everything. It's one of those sliding doors moments where you can't help but wonder how different things might have looked if that result had gone the other way. Would the mood around the club feel completely different right now? Would expectations be higher, or would we just be talking about heavy defeats at a higher level? It's impossible to say for certain, but it does highlight how fine the margins are. Despite that disappointment, Celtic still managed to put together a decent run in the Europa League, picking up results that contributed to the club's overall UEFA coefficient. Now, this is where things start to get really important, because coefficients aren't just numbers sitting on a table. They directly impact where you enter European competitions, who you face, and how difficult your path is going to be. This season, Celtic picked up 9 coefficient points, which might not sound terrible at first glance, but when you compare it to previous campaigns, you start to see a slight drop-off. It's actually the second best return over the past 5 years, which says a lot about the inconsistency in Europe during that period. Breaking that down a bit, most of those points came from wins and draws in the Europa League phase, with a small bonus added based on final positioning. But even with those contributions, when you look at where Celtic currently sit in the wider European ranking, it's not exactly where you'd expect a club of this size to be. Dropping down the list and seeing the team sitting outside the top tier of European clubs really underlines the challenge ahead. It's not just about prestige, it's about the practical consequences that come with that position. And this is where the conversation starts to shift towards next season and beyond, because depending on how things finish domestically, Celtic could be facing a very different kind of European journey. The structure for Scottish clubs remains similar in the immediate future, but even within that framework, there's a wide range of possible outcomes. Finishing at the top still gives you a shot at the Champions League, but even then, it's not a guarantee. There are qualifying rounds to navigate, and as we've already seen, those aren't straightforward at all. If you finish just below that, the route becomes even more complicated. The number of matches you need to win increases, the margin for error disappears, and suddenly you're playing high-stakes games before the season has even properly settled. Drop a bit further down, and you're looking at the Conference League, which, for a club like Celtic, feels like a significant step away from where supporters believe the team should be competing. And it's not just about the name of the competition, it's about the level, the exposure, and the financial impact that comes with it. What makes this even more unpredictable is how quickly things can swing. There's still a scenario where Celtic could turn things around domestically and put themselves back in a stronger position heading into next season. On the flip side, there's also a very real possibility that things don't go to plan and the club ends up taking a step down in European terms. That range of outcomes is what makes this moment so crucial, because the decisions made now and the performances on the pitch will shape not just one season, but potentially several. Looking slightly further ahead, the situation becomes even more concerning, and this is where the coefficient system really starts to bite. There's always a delay between performance and consequence, which means what's happening now doesn't fully hit straight away. Instead, it shows up a season or two down the line, and by that point, it's much harder to fix quickly. Scotland's position in the wider European ranking has slipped, and that has a direct impact on how many teams qualify for each competition and at what stage they enter. That means in a couple of seasons' time, the path to the Champions League could become significantly more difficult. Instead of having a relatively short route, clubs could be forced to go through multiple qualifying rounds just to reach the main stage. Each of those rounds brings its own pressure, its own risks, and its own potential for things to go wrong. It's not just about being good enough. It's about being consistently sharp from the very start of the campaign. And when you think about how challenging even a single qualifying tie has been at times, the idea of having to navigate several in a row starts to feel like a massive hurdle. It raises serious questions about squad depth, preparation, and whether the club is truly equipped to handle that kind of demand year after year. Because it's not just a one-off scenario, it could become the new normal if things don't improve. At the same time, there's an argument to be made that playing in competitions like the Europa League might actually offer a chance to rebuild confidence and pick up valuable results. The level, while still competitive, can be more manageable, and there's an opportunity there to collect points, improve rankings, and gradually work back towards a stronger position. But that only works if the team takes those opportunities and builds something from them. Because ultimately, this isn't just about one bad season or one unlucky result. It's about a pattern that's been developing over time, and unless something shifts, it could define Celtic's place in European football for the foreseeable future. And when you carry that forward into what comes after next season, that's where things start to feel even more intense, because the drop in the national coefficient doesn't just tweak the system slightly, it reshapes the entire pathway for Scottish clubs. What used to be a relatively direct route into the biggest competition in Europe suddenly becomes a long, demanding journey filled with obstacles that can derail a campaign before it even properly begins. It's not just about winning the league anymore. It's about surviving multiple rounds against champions from other countries who are all fighting for the exact same limited spaces. For Celtic, that means even in the best-case scenario, finishing top domestically would still leave the club needing to come through several qualifying ties just to reach the Champions League proper. And history tells us that those rounds are never straightforward, regardless of the opponent. There's always that element of unpredictability, whether it's due to early season fitness, travel, or simply coming up against a side that's already in rhythm. The margin for error becomes incredibly small, and one off night can undo months of work. Then you start to look at the positions just below that, and the situation becomes even more demanding. Teams finishing second or third would be pushed towards the Conference League, and not even directly into the main phase. Instead, they'd be facing a series of qualifying rounds just to earn a place at that level. So rather than building momentum, you're constantly under pressure from the very first competitive fixtures of the season. It changes the entire dynamic of how a campaign is approached, because there's no room to ease into things. Even the Scottish Cup winners wouldn't be spared from that grind. The reward of a Europa League place would still come with multiple qualifying rounds attached, meaning there's no guaranteed safety net. You could win a domestic trophy and still find yourself battling through several stages just to reach the point where the competition really begins. That's a massive shift from what supporters have been used to in recent years, and it underlines just how important those coefficient rankings are in shaping the bigger picture. There's also a broader concern that comes into play when you think about consistency across the league. If Celtic aren't operating from a position of strength, and other clubs continue to improve, the balance within Scottish football could start to shift in ways that make European qualification even more uncertain. It's not just about one rival anymore. It's about the possibility of multiple teams pushing at the same time, all competing for those limited spots. That kind of pressure can build quickly, especially if momentum swings in the wrong direction. And while it might sound extreme too, there is a scenario where repeated setbacks could gradually push Celtic into a cycle where the Conference League becomes the regular destination rather than the exception. That's not where the club expects to be, and it's certainly not where supporters want to see things heading. But it shows how quickly standards can shift if results don't keep pace with expectations. European football is unforgiving in that sense, because it doesn't give you time to recover once you start slipping down the ladder. What makes this even more fascinating, in a strange way, is that the system itself almost encourages these cycles. Countries rise up the rankings when their clubs perform well, gaining better access and easier entry points into competitions. But with that comes tougher opposition, and if results dip, the slide down the rankings can happen just as quickly. Then, as teams drop into lower competitions, they might find it easier to pick up wins again, slowly rebuilding their position. It's a constant ebb and flow, and Scotland has been through that pattern before. So while the outlook might seem grim right now, it's not necessarily permanent. The key question is how clubs respond during this phase. Do they use it as an opportunity to reset, to build stronger squads, and to approach European matches with more clarity and purpose? Or do they continue to struggle, allowing the gap to widen even further? That's where the real impact will be felt, Because the groundwork laid during these tougher seasons often determines how quickly a recovery can happen. There's also a psychological side to all of this that shouldn't be ignored. When a team goes into European campaigns expecting to qualify and compete at a certain level, there's a confidence that comes with that. But when the path becomes longer and more uncertain, that mindset can shift. Every tie starts to feel heavier, every mistake more costly, and that pressure can influence performances in ways that aren't always easy to measure. Managing that aspect becomes just as important as the tactical and technical side of the game. At the same time, there are small opportunities hidden within the challenge. Playing in competitions like the Europa League or even the Conference League can offer valuable experience to younger players, giving them a chance to develop in a European setting without the immediate intensity of the Champions League spotlight. It can also allow the team to build a rhythm, picking up results that contribute to both confidence and coefficient points. But again, that only matters if those opportunities are taken seriously and turned into progress. All of this feeds into a bigger conversation about planning and long-term direction. It's not enough to react to each season as it comes. There needs to be a clear understanding of where the club wants to be in 2 or 3 years' time, especially with the structural changes in European football continuing to evolve. Because while the format of competitions might shift slightly, the importance of coefficients, rankings, and consistent performances isn't going anywhere. And as those changes continue to be discussed at the highest level, including potential tweaks to how competitions are structured and how teams are matched up, there's always the possibility that new challenges or opportunities could emerge. Whether it's adjustments to seeding, changes in how clubs from the same country are drawn, or even new formats designed to increase high-profile matches, all of it adds another layer of complexity to an already demanding landscape. So when you put it all together, what we're really looking at is a period of transition, where the outcomes aren't fixed but the risks are very real. The next couple of seasons could define the trajectory for Celtic in Europe, not just in terms of results, but in terms of reputation, confidence, and long-term positioning within the game. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. Whispers are beginning to swirl across Glasgow as Nicolas Raskin has reportedly opened his heart in a way that will not go unnoticed on the green side of the city. The midfielder is said to have declared, in no uncertain terms, "My dream is to play for Celtic FC," a statement that has instantly ignited speculation among supporters and pundits alike. While there has been no official approach, the mere suggestion of such admiration has set tongues wagging. Raskin, known for his composure on the ball and relentless work rate, fits the mold of a player who could thrive under the bright lights and heavy expectations that come with wearing the famous hoops. Those close to the situation hint that his comments were not casual, but rather reflective of a long-standing appreciation for the club's history, atmosphere, and European pedigree. Naturally, questions arise about how realistic such a move could be. Celtic have built a reputation for identifying hungry, technically gifted players capable of stepping up to the demands of Scottish football and beyond. Raskin's profile aligns neatly with that philosophy, and it is understood that figures within the recruitment structure may already be aware of his sentiments. Still, this remains firmly in the realm of rumor. No negotiations, no bids, no confirmations. Only the words of a player and the imagination of a support eager for the next exciting addition. Yet in football, such statements often carry weight. A dream expressed publicly can sometimes be the first step towards something more concrete. For now, it is a story fueled by possibility rather than certainty. But in a city where passion runs deep and ambition never sleeps, even a whisper like this can feel like the beginning of something worth watching. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.